Ladies and gentlemen, over the last 4 years, I have done hundreds of sales calls. I've sharpened my sales skills and I've truly found what moves the needle forward when it comes to becoming a better salesperson, being more persuasive, and everything else that comes with improving the likeliness that you accurately portray the value of your service to the client, and they end up becoming exactly that, a client of your agency. Now in this video, I just wanna go ahead and share my findings. These are just, my personal findings, as well as, my unique experience running the largest education company on earth for agency owners, having thousands of students. This is the value that I can give you. Now, the biggest factor is quantity. It's very entertaining for me to constantly watch people get obsessed with, how do I know that they're qualified, this, that. I think that in the same amount of time you could spend figuring out whether they're qualified and ruminating over it, just reach out to the prospect, and if they're not qualified, who cares? You have more reference experiences under your belt. In fact, 14 minutes from now, I have a sales call that is only doing 10 to 25K a month, which for our agency is, that doesn't really qualify. It's an info product business. For us, we're looking at clients that do at least 25K a month to be qualified. But for me, the way that I look at it is, look, 45 minutes, if they don't become a client, whatever, it doesn't matter. But that 45 minutes, that gives me reference experiences. And even after 4 years of having an agency, I still, if I go through a couple month period where I'm not having that many sales calls, because here's what happens, I will have time to focus on my agency because, for example, let's say things with the education company are kind of settled, things with the schools in Nepal are settled, things with the clothing line are settled, I'm not in the process of hiring or any big operational change. That's amazing because that allows me time to focus on my agency. So usually when that happens, my agency goes up like this, then it goes down a little after that period, after I have to shift my focus to my education company or the clothing line again, or the other multiple projects that we have going on. And it kind of maintains. And when it maintains, I'm not doing that many sales calls. My main focus is just to retain the clients that we do have and, maybe bring on a new client every month or one every 2 months. With our retention rate, that just kind of keeps things maintaining, basically. In those periods where I don't have much time to focus on my agency, my sales skills suffer. And it's so obvious to me now, where in the past 30 days, we had just around 30 demo calls booked in. So clients book in a 30-minute demo call, Danny vets them, and then from there, around 1/3 of clients will then speak to me. So, in the past 30 days, having around 10 discovery calls, like the first 1 or 2, I was definitely a little rusty. So my best piece of advice to you is, unless they are so obviously not qualified, I mean, it would just be genuinely such a waste of time for you to even reach out to them or take the discovery call. Just do it. And the best part about this is, look, the calls that you learn the most from, the sales experiences that you learn the most from, aren't the ones where they're a perfect qualified lead. The sales process flows exactly to a T. No, the best calls are the ones where you have to do a bit of logistical thinking. You have to figure out whether they could work as an agency client of yours, maybe where there's a bit more pushback because this is a larger investment considering the size of the revenue. Like, those are the ones that you learn the most from, is the ones where you kind of have to do some mental gymnastics to kind of get it over the line. So in my opinion, by far the most important thing is being out there in the field. The most important thing is actually getting those reference experiences, getting more sales calls under your belt. And that's why I think a lot of people who kind of obsess a little bit too much over, is it a qualified lead? If it isn't, worst comes to worst, you get real world sales experience. And I also believe that the best calls that you learn the most from, once again, are the unqualified ones, because a lot of times they're the ones that have the most objections. And although I don't think objection handling is anywhere near as important as people make it out to be, because in my opinion, if you are dealing with objections, you've done something wrong in the sales process. If you've done everything right and they're qualified, there shouldn't be any objections, to be honest. There may be logistical questions, but those are different from objections. But as I said, it's usually the quote unquote unqualified leads where you're gonna get some more objections, and that keeps you on your toes. And I think that's what's exciting about being an agency owner and sharpening the skill of sales. The next thing, and I'm so shocked by how many people don't do this, is people don't record their calls. You want to record all of your calls and watch them back. In the same way, professional athletes spend just as much time watching over tapes and watching over recordings of the games as they do in the actual games. In fact, they spend even more time because they'll watch it, they'll rewind, they'll put in slow motion, watch, like that is almost as valuable as the game itself, because it's a chance for you to analyze and look from a macro perspective and really just stop and assess everything that you've done. Now, back in mid 2018, I actually moved all of my calls over to Zoom. And it's funny, I don't care if a client is in London, I'm still gonna do the call on Zoom because once again, I wanna be able to record it, and it's super easy to record directly there on Zoom. Obviously you wanna make the client aware that you're recording, and I guess that's not hard because it has a big recording thing on the top left, but you just let them know you record all calls just in case anyone else needs to be involved in the decision or they wanna see the recording after the call. Now, once you have this incredible experience, you know, this actual you in the field, you know, it's almost like when it comes to athletes, it's like game time. When you have that asset in the evenings, once you've done your outreach, you've done your calls, you've done your prospecting, you've done your maybe service delivery, if you're doing that for your agency, at night when you're a little more tired, watch back over your calls, study them, analyze them. It'll bring you, in my opinion, just as much or even more value than sales calls themselves. The last thing is study your script. And I actually made this mistake in 2019. I think I got a little, I don't want to say cocky, but maybe I just got a little too cocky. You know, having closed many whales at that point, I was like, I don't really need the script. Like I know the framework. So in 2019, for none of my clients, basically, I didn't use a sales script for any of them. And here's the thing, I don't recommend you follow a sales script to a T and you sound robotic. You need to have the framework in mind, still follow a script, but I can tell you definitely looking back at 2019 and then now 2020, where I've come back to my script, I've rejigged it a little bit, but I follow my script to a T, but I also throw in a deliberate like mistakes, a little deliberate pauses, deliberate questions outside of the script. So that way, once again, it just flows very naturally. But I think this kind of comes down to pretty much everything in life. People get to a certain point where they neglect, you know, they get to a certain level of success where they neglect the thing that got them there in the first place. And I think in 2019, that's kind of what happened with me. And following a sales script, I was like, you know, I don't need to follow a script. Like, you know, I'm pretty good at this whole sales thing at this point. I don't need to follow a script. And I think that was a big mistake looking back. You know, because even watching back over some of my calls in 2019, some of my call recordings, it's very clear that I go on tangents when there's no actual value to them. Although I had this framework in my mind, you can get very, you know, it's kind of like, you know, having a map. Yes, you may know how to arrive to a destination without the map, but you're probably gonna end up taking tons of detours and it's gonna take you twice as long, and you never really know whether you're actually gonna reach the destination. Whereas if you just follow the map, you're gonna get there in the quickest time possible, as smooth as possible, and you know that you've done everything to get to the destination possible. That's kind of the same way I look at following a sales script. And as I said, you know, last year I think I got a little, cocky. And I forgot what got me there in the first place, and that was having a framework and a script that I follow. Once again, I feel into the conversation, you know, there's natural ebbs and flows, and you know, contextually I'll add little comments or maybe some little questions that are off script, but at the end of the day, following the script always gets me to the destination I want. And I know that if I didn't sign the client, it wasn't usually to do with my sales performance. It was just genuinely, they weren't a client that was able to be signed, or maybe they may have not been a good fit for our agency. So ladies and gentlemen, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. For those of you guys watching this that already have a couple clients and would like to get to the 20, 30, 40, 50, even $100,000 a month mark in record-breaking time, and would really like more intimate help from, you know, myself, Danny, Kieran, the rest of my team at Grow Your Agency, as well as my agency that we still actively run, and you like the best program in the entire industry on how to actually get to that point. You know, we have people in copy paste agency who are doing 2 to 3K a month, but as I said, are adamant and determined on getting to 20K a month in record breaking time. We also have people in copy paste agency who are doing 100K a month profit. In fact, we have quite a few people and they're looking to get to 200K a month in record breaking time. So, you know, wherever you are on that sliding scale, it's not so much about where you start, it's more about how motivated are you to get to the destination. And if, you know, you're someone who doesn't want to play small, then there's going to be a link down below to watch the case study, or you can just go to growagency.com/watch-now. Go ahead and watch the case study. You can find out a little bit more about our philosophy in copy paste agency, and then go ahead and book in a call with our student success manager. As I said, on behalf of myself and the rest of the team, we'd love to work with you a little bit more intimately. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll see you guys in the next one.